We will build sustainably because reducing emissions isn't just a moral duty, it's an economic imperative.
Apparently, the poppy has become a political statement. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. That isn't a joke. That's one of the stories we have here today. We also have Mark Carney doing a press conference announcing his Buy Canadian policy. During this press conference, he gets called out to his face, bringing in a budget that doesn't serve Canada's needs, does not serve Canadian companies, Canadians, or the needs of our energy companies. We got a bunch of other stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got some new polling data coming from Abacus data. And as we look at this, just consider the context of Pierre Poilievre getting slandered and smashed by the mainstream media over the past week or two. CBC roughly spends $1 million a day, and all of their coverage has been attacking Pierre. And what do we have? The government's approval rating going down, was up 53. Now it's down to 44. You can see the disapproval rating rising. Mark Carney, though, impressions of him have not gone down that much. And it's sad. I talked to some friends who don't really follow politics and they just don't really know who Carney is. If I try to give them my website, they don't want to bother look into stuff. They're like, he's a banker, he must be smart. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of Canadians just not willing to do the research, voting for Mark Carney, and now we're in this position where we've got a banker who's now bringing in all his other banker buddies. I've got another exclusive coming here. They're using Canada as their personal piggy bank to get rich. So impressions of Mark Carney, negative impressions have gone up a bit here. Pierre Poilievre on the other side, you can see this spiking. They're spending $1 million a day to go after the guy. Yeah, it's gone from 41 up to 44%. The same thing would happen in the reverse if they were putting pictures of Mark Carney and Ghislaine Maxwell on the TV every single day and showing that he's invested in the Red Chris mine. He's enriching himself. He's name dropping these companies and naming major infrastructure projects that he's invested in. Update on that on Thursday. He'll be announcing new ones. Despite all that and Poilievre getting hammered in the media, we're still seeing the Conservatives sitting at 41%, only losing one. Liberals staying the same at 40. Pretty amazing. Resilient. We also have this liaison strategies one. It says, compared to last year, is the federal deficit, all the green ones here are smaller or somewhat smaller, and all the red ones are larger or somewhat larger. This is how people responded to this. The deficit is massively larger. This should just be red across the board. And this is the problem we have in Canada. Who said that the deficit is smaller? The biggest group? Liberals. Liberal voters think it's smaller. What's also surprising is there's some conservatives, 6% say it's somewhat smaller and 1% saying much smaller. We have a problem in Canada. Canadians do not know what's going on. There should be no green on this chart. There shouldn't be any gray either, which is about the same. Got this one from Dan Mazier. It says, damning evidence. Newly obtained emails show Immigration Canada told staff to delete the word free from ads about newcomer healthcare, afraid Canadians would see how much money they're giving away. Meanwhile, 6.5 million Canadians don't have access to a family doctor. The email reads here, hi, Christy. Thank you so much for your feedback and insights. I've just adjusted the post text accordingly. And then Shannon, just flagging Christy's comment for your awareness, sensitivities around promoting that new word services are free. Marketing and remove that word from their ads as they're too Gen Pop public facing. I see it is still the title of the website though, in case you want to work with the web to adjust here as well. They don't like the optics of Canadian taxpayers paying for people who are not Canadians. You're darn right this makes us angry. Canadians get treated last in our own country. Anyone who isn't Canadian who doesn't have full PR status should have to pay for healthcare, full stop. I agree. If you're not a Canadian, you should have to pay. Also got this one from the HOC staffer. A man ended 6 people, including 4 young children in Ottawa last year. Yesterday, he was sentenced. Notice the statement of the judge. Stupefying, monstrous, and even demonic. You're the stuff of nightmares, Philip said. If I could give consecutive sentences, I would. De Yoza was 19 years old at the time of his arrest. The judge can't sentence this person because of liberal laws. So unless these people go after Laurentian elites, go into Laurentian elite neighborhoods and starts ending them, nothing will change. Darshani Akanya, 35, and her 7-year-old son, 4-year-old daughter, and 3-year-old daughter, and 2-month-old baby were all ended. People like this shouldn't be allowed to live. If they commit this, they should be ended, period. Why would we pay to have these people in our society? That makes no sense. They offer no value to us. Why should taxpayers have a financial burden of keeping a monster alive? That makes no sense. We got this one here, Arlene Dickinson. Remember this whole Carney's Council on Canada-US relations? They had Arlene Dickinson and a bunch of them. The media touting this as a game changer. Apparently, they haven't met since August 22nd. The website is even archived. This is just another for show project. Nothing to actually get anything done.
End of the summer, does that sound about right? The last meeting of the council?
It would have been probably in the summer, yes.
Okay, because I believe that's the last time you had written about your discussions in the council. At that time, you had written that there's a lot happening on the negotiation front. What was your last advice to the government at that last meeting in August?
The last advice that I was giving them that meeting was, again, I think those discussions are meant to be confidential, and
They're not meeting anymore. This is all just a sham. As table salt showing here, pages archived. Next up, we have quite the blood boiler here. Judges are now banning poppies from courtrooms because they make people feel unsafe. And I just realized I think my poppy fell off. There it is.
Nova Scotia's Chief Justices issued a statement today supporting individual judges prohibiting courtroom staff from wearing Remembrance Day poppies on the basis they're political statements. The heads of Nova Scotia's Supreme and Provincial Courts say judges have an obligation to ensure the courtroom is unbiased and impartial, and banning a symbol such as a poppy is not intended to undermine veterans, but to ensure everyone knows court is a neutral space.
How is it a political statement to have our fathers and grandfathers fight in a world conflict for freedom of our country? This is deplorable. Canadian judges tell us that poppies in courtrooms will make people unsafe. What really makes Canadians unsafe is when judges release the P-word people into community, like the recent sentencing. Disgusting. So it looks like we've got farmers pissed off again. So I don't know what's going on here. I'll bring you updates when I do, but the sign here says something in French. So this is in Quebec somewhere. Jumping over to Mark Carney's press conference here, he highlights a new Buy Canadian policy where they're going to prioritize Canada on everything, no matter what. And
About what we build, it's also how we build, and that's what I want to focus for the balance of my remarks. We're going to build inclusively, in full partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We will build in solidarity with workers, creating good union jobs. We will build sustainably, because reducing emissions isn't just a moral duty, it's an economic imperative. And above all, we will build Canadian by becoming our own best customer. With our new Buy Canadian policy, whenever the federal government spends, we will select Canadian suppliers by default, rather than using the current best efforts approach. And this approach, this new approach, will extend to all federal agencies, all crown corporations, such as Build Canada Homes, such as Alto, High Speed Rail, and such as our spending from our new Defense Investment Agency.
you know what's going to happen here is it's going to default to Brookfield companies with outrageous prices. We're not dumb, Carney. We know what you're doing.
Our Buy Canadian policy will include federal infrastructure spending, ensuring that as much as possible of that $70 billion we're planning to invest in the roads, bridges, and community centers on which Canadians rely comes from Canadian-made suppliers. And in those cases, when domestic suppliers aren't available, purchases will be required to include Canadian content or to be sourced from trusted partners. And those cases will be the exception, not the norm. And they will require ministerial approval.
While watching this, during his question and answer period here, he gets some pretty ripe duper's delight.
Both the NDP and the Greens are undecided as to whether they will support your budget. Are you open to giving those parties any concessions to get your budget passed?
There it is, the duper's delight again.
Are you open to giving those parties any concessions to get your budget?
He can't help himself. Are you open to giving any concessions? He smiles about it. He's got something else going on here. I don't know what he's up to. Is there more floor crossers? Is he pulling someone from the block, the NDP? Who is he bribing? What's he bribing them with? His cabinet positions? A cushy job in the Senate? An ambassadorship? Or is he going to take a trip down to the Cayman Islands? See how those funds are doing?
Well, I think that there's a lot in the budget for everyone, and align with the objectives of those parties. We have had discussions with those parties in advance of the budget, and a number of things are in the budget that were reinforced by the desires of both those parties.
Yeah, you're full of crap. This guy doesn't know what to say because he knows this entire budget is for himself and Brookfield. Bruce Flatt rolling out their agenda. They don't give a crap about Canadians. Next up, Mark Carney doing this press conference in New Brunswick gets schooled on what the people of New Brunswick need.
Just as a follow-up, I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around when it comes to the forestry sector in New Brunswick. It's 1 out of 49 firms are involved with the forestry sector.
Yeah, a hugely important sector. Yeah,
$2 billion go to the United States. I'm just wondering if you can explain a bit more, looking at that focus, how a Buy Canadian movement can even begin to make a dent on that front.
It's part of the answer. It is part of the answer. Look, 75% of the exports from the forestry sector historically, New Brunswick goes to the United States. slightly lower percentages for the country as a whole. The U.S. is trying to shut out our forestry products. Okay, let's be clear.
Yeah, and you're doing nothing about it. He's not getting a deal, and he doesn't care about New Brunswick. He's not even prepared for this press conference.
Absolutely clear. And we can do several things in that context. One is, yes, buy Canadian and build more at home. Secondly, diversify internationally. And third, expand what we do with forest products. And of course, all of that is in the context.
He's got nothing here. He has absolutely nothing. He's not standing up for the workers of New Brunswick and Canada, the forestry industry. He only cares about his net zero agenda, and the forestry industry is not getting him there.
Hi, it's John Chilbeck from the Telegraph Journal. Some New Brunswick officials are concerned about the major project lists that it hasn't really included New Brunswick. For instance, SMRs in Ontario are getting a couple billion. We see some help for the Ring of Fire in Ontario, not with the Sisson Mine here in New Brunswick. Port of Montreal and Churchill seem to be getting help, but not the Port of St. John. Can you speak to that? Is New Brunswick going to be part of this major projects?
Yeah, thank you for the question. New Brunswick is very much part of this. And let's just take a step back.
Take a step back. Based on the amount of smiles I'm seeing there, New Brunswick isn't getting anything. He smiles when he's got something to hide, when he doesn't want to tell the truth.
And then address some of the specifics, which is this is not a one and done. It's not one round of projects and then we move forward with those. This is a living list. We develop more. We've got big strategies that then also have implications for provinces across the country. So that's the first thing. And the next round of major projects is going to be announced later this week on Thursday. So there you go. Be announced on Thursday.
So next up here, Carney gets a hard question, one he doesn't like.
The energy sector doesn't appear thrilled about the budget. How can you succeed in turning Canada into an energy superpower when the budget didn't provide any of the 5 relief measures that the sector had asked for in its Build Canada Now letter earlier this year?
Well, I'm not sure I totally recognize that characterization, if I may. The first is, let's look at Canada's position as an energy superpower, and let me generalize it. If you're a superpower, you're able to do more than one thing, and Canada can do many things in energy. We have our electricity grid is 85% clean. That's because of hydro. It's because of nuclear, other renewable power. We have an enormous opportunity to scale up that clean grid.
Yeah, you have an enormous opportunity to inflate your funds you created with Brookfield, the largest green funds in the world. You're funneling tax dollars, sovereign funds, the Canada Growth Fund, the Green Climate Fund, green bonds, the Clean Investments tax credits, all in a means to boost his own funds in Brookfield. That is what this guy is doing here. He's using Canada as his own little piggy bank, and he's bringing on all his little banker buddies to help him do it.
I met with Premier Holt, as you may know, this morning. We spent a lot of time talking about how New Brunswick can help be part of the solution for that, whether that's more nuclear, whether that's interties with more clean power that's coming from other provinces, Quebec, potentially Nova Scotia, and just linking in together. So there's a huge element. What's in the budget for that? Enormous incentives in order for that to move. Clean energy tax credit confirmed in the budget. I won't go into all the details, but something called the super productivity deduction, which is additive. You stack these on top of them. It's enormous incentives for that to move forward. The second point,
These are enormous incentives for his own green fund. This guy is pumping the value of these global transition funds that he set up. These two funds, as well as the Catalytic Transition Fund, this one is dedicated to emerging markets, so anything out of North America. And he just went over to Asia. And he even bragged about the sovereign funds and the big money, the wealth pension funds over in Asia. He wants to bring this in. He wants this money to funnel into Brookfield. This isn't an open fund for anyone to invest in. I'm sure it's structured in a way where Bruce Flatt opens the door when you get another pension fund, you get more Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds. They keep investing in this, they keep pumping it, they keep growing it. And Carney, being the guy who set this up, is going to make a percentage off of the gains. That is what he's doing here. We should never have a banker as a prime minister. They know way too much about the monetary system to abuse it, and that's what he's doing.
Talk about you can do more than one thing, and then I should hand to your colleague for his question, is in conventional energy. Back in June, this country shipped our first LNG shipment to Asia. We will ship 50 million tons to Asia by the end of this decade, and potentially double that again. And part of what's happening with the major projects is we are making that possible. We're making the speed with which we can do that possible, and we're doing it in a way with the companies, obviously, with Indigenous partners who are full partners in all these projects.
Indigenous partners, if they build this on Indigenous land, they don't pay taxes. That's not valuable to Canada. That's only valuable to them. Now, if they incorporate the business offer reserve, they pay taxes, and often that's what they're going to need to get investors to come in to help build this stuff. But if they have the money to build this on their own land, they do not pay taxes to Canada. Thus, it's not valuable. These guys put so much value on reconciliation when we're paying out so much money to reconciliation and we're not getting tax dollars back. This is so ridiculous.
In a way that's sustainable. So the emissions of these projects are in the top quartile, so or the top decile, so amongst the lowest emissions for the actual production and transportation of that LNG in the world.
Canada doesn't hardly have any emissions. From the government's own website, global greenhouse gas emissions in Canada reach 676 megatons CO2 equivalent, made up of 1.4% of global GHG emissions. 1.4%. We could be net zero, net negative. It wouldn't even affect the global climate. China and America are really the only countries that can affect this in any real way. Canada is not doing anything. Bankrupting our country to make him rich is a bad idea.
So that's how we're moving forward. And we're making all of that. Possible. So the investment is large scale, and we're moving forward.
Yeah, you're moving forward with making yourself rich. Canadians don't know what's going on.